there, and welcome to the 7-Figure Authorpreneur Podcast, where we empower authors with tools, resources, and inspiration to build prosperous book brands. Guys, I just got to do a little shameless plug. This brilliant creative mind is actually the genius behind the 7-Figure logo for our podcast. So I not only admire her from afar and the expertise that she brings in the area of branding, but I've experienced her process, her effectiveness, the value that she brings with what she does and builds for you. So I'm excited to share her with you guys. Now, let me be on quiet here a little bit, and I'm going to let Jaylene share a little bit about herself and how she got started in the branding industry.
Well, yeah, I'm so excited to be on today. I'm excited to share what I have, and I hope that you guys can take some tidbits and apply it to your business. So I actually started off as a teacher. I started off as an English teacher. My degree is actually in English literature. And so I taught high school English for quite some time before I went into branding and website development. Because of my husband's career, I wasn't able to be in a brick and mortar like I wanted to. And so I didn't want to start with the classroom and leave. And so I was like, okay, what is something that I'm interested in? What's something that I love? Where is there a space for me to, one, be creative, and two, really help others, because that's always been my focus. And so I got into branding, self-taught. So from the ground up, built it through for 5 years. I started off freelancing before I developed Brim+Bold Creative Studio, where we specialize in branding. And with Brim+Bold, our goal has always been to stay small, stay local, and really help the people that want to make an impact in their community. So that's where it all started. And we've been going for 6 years now and not slowing down.
Guys, I'm going to tell you, it's something about learning from someone who built from the ground up. They have a very unique ability to educate, empower, and inspire. So let's get ready for an exciting episode. And today's episode, my friends, is entitled Brandology. We're about to give you some tips on how to unlock the mind of the consumer. Let's get started. How can authors leverage branding to create a strong connection with their readers and build a loyal following?
I think, especially with authors in particular, it's important to think about branding as a way of storytelling. What you're doing is that you are connecting them through all of their senses to the literature that you're creating, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, informational, whatever it is that you're presenting. You want to be able to curate not only the visuals, but having a strong brand foundation where people are able to look at your brand and understand the pillars and connect with that. There are so many authors out there providing so many different repertoires and providing so many different paths or journeys that allow the reader to go on those with you. It's important to see branding as communication. So leveraging the visuals, leveraging the foundation, the community that you can create around that is going to really be a way to corner your market and really connect with your readers.
Probably like me, I was busting through all those points like, oh my goodness, we're gonna dig a little deeper and pull some more from you on some things that you shared. You spoke about branding foundations. Can you explore that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of times when people think about branding, they jump right into the visuals. They jump on what they want it to look like, feel like, the colors, like the essence when it comes to what people see. Your brand starts with your pillars. What are those 3 or 4 immovable things that are going to define your brand, define the way that you want to connect with people? And so you find those 3 or 4 things, and you don't want to have a bunch of them. You just want to have 3 or 4 that you can really focus on and utilize those to keep reminding clients that those are the things that you stand for. Those are the things that are important to you. So starting with those foundational things, and often that starts with your why. So why are you doing what you're doing? Why is it important for you to share? Why are you taking the risk as an author to share your creativity, to share your story, the journey? And once you develop those things, all the other things fall in line. Because once you have those strong foundations, you can choose the colors that are going to connect and really share that emotion that you have, or that emotion that you want your readers to have, right? And so we use things, color psychology. We use the importance of typography to communicate all of those things, because as people and as readers and consumers, we use all of our senses to connect with the content. And the way that technology has really exploded, even in the past 5 years, in the past 6 months with AI, we utilize all those senses so that we can quickly connect with things. And so making sure that you can say one consistent across everything, so they're able to quickly connect that this is the brand, that this is the thing that I'm looking for, is going to be more effective in the long run. So starting with that why, starting with those foundational pillars, and then creating your story, because people want to buy a story. They don't want to just buy a product. They don't want to just see a pretty cover or beautiful things. They want to get that story and then connect that with the visual. So your visuals come last. They come after you've already established all of those things, all of that grit, all of that beautiful, robust things that make you who you are. Then you have the visuals and they're like, oh my goodness, this is me, to see myself in it. And you have to decide too, anytime you're selling a product or a service, are you a mirror or are you a window? And so you have to decide on, are you giving a reflection of that particular reader? Are you giving a reflection that client, or are you showing them something different? Are you providing that window so they can see something else or that connects them? And that comes with, why? Are you educating? Are you entertaining? Are you taking them on a journey? What path do you want people to take?
In my pause because I was over here taking some strong realm notes, guys. Listen, I was like following you until you hit, are you a mirror or a window? That was powerful. What role does that question play in building a foundation for your branding?
It really is. I use it in two ways. One, to start, because you have to decide on what your purpose is. So you have to decide on, do I want people to see a reflection of themselves in what I'm doing, and what I'm creating and what I'm putting out there? Or do I want to show them something different, something that maybe they're not familiar with, or maybe something that their brain hasn't, or their imagination hasn't taken them to yet? And so you present something that they can still connect with, but it's beyond what they've started with. And so I use that first to start with, and then I use it as a check. Because when you're branding, you have to keep it's different steps. So it's each part of the step you want to stop and see if your answer to that is the same as it was when it started. And that's going to give you some insight and a deeper understanding of your branding, because you have to truly understand why you started and your branding entirety, the essence of your brand, in order to effectively communicate. And I think that's a pitfall for a lot of people, whether you're an author or whether you're selling a service. It's understanding, truly having an in-depth understanding of your brand.
Wow, that was revelatory. Very. So with considering all those things, Jaylene, how can authors apply those principles of branding to establish a strong and memorable personal brand in the literary world?
I think it really starts with writing it down. I think that's the hardest part, is when you are establishing your brand, to effectively communicate it, you got to write it all down, because sometimes it lives in our head and it changes and it switches. And so I think having a brand strategist that's going to ask you the hard questions, someone who knows what they're doing, that can help you really get to your why, because sometimes that's buried. So starting with that so that you can apply those principles is going to be the most effective tool that you can do. Some people try to do it on their own, and it can really put you in a corner when you're trying to develop a brand that everyone, or whoever your ideal client is, can connect with it.
Now, you just hit something, because I love the fact that you integrated the idea and concept of that. Hey, sometimes you have to hire expertise to help you really elevate your brand. But I know even in my beginning journey of building a brand as an author, those questionnaires were intimidating.
Right.
Like, it was like 30 or some odd questions. And I'm thinking, like, can't we just have a conversation? Like, I don't have an answer to that. How does an author get clear enough to begin a relationship with a strategist? Because again, when I looked at those questionnaires, some of them I never booked a meeting as a result, because I'm like, I don't understand enough to reply. Can you help discuss getting clear? How does a person get clear enough to have a conversation about building their brand?
Absolutely. And that's not something that's just like, everyone has that issue. When you get those questionnaires and they're 30 questions deep and you're like, I have no idea where to start with this. Like, it's overwhelming. And so I think that one effective way to start is just to write your story. Think about why you're doing it. Keep it simple, keep it clean, write down why you're doing it. And then once you get clear on that, that's when you can communicate with a brand strategist or a marketing person, depending on where you are in your journey, and just like, hey, listen, send this over to me, but this isn't how I operate. So I need some help. How about we start with the interview? Like, you have to advocate for yourself, because they do have different ways, and people try to simplify it and make it the easiest way for them. But it is a relationship that you have. And so you have to be able to advocate for yourself. So start with writing your own story, figuring out why you're doing it, and then communicate with your brand strategist. And just like, I appreciate you sending me this questionnaire, but I need to have a communication, because that's going to be the most effective way for me to share. And I think if they're good at what they do, they're going to appreciate that, because their goal is to get the information that they need to help you build the brand that you want to build. I mean, some are absolutely great, but the way that they communicate might not work with you, and that's fine. You have to find the person that's right for you.
That is so good. But you actually triggered another question. Because I'm sure there's some listeners out there are probably saying, okay, you keep dropping a line about this story and why. I remember from my personal journey, I feel like I have a very complex story and a diverse reason why I do what I do. So when I feel, and I'm going to use my terminology, when I feel forced to like say it's because of this, I get it lost for words. Because I'm like, but I do it for multiple reasons. And my story is so big and vast. How can I simplify it? Can we talk about really how does an author trying to build a brand pick a point in their whole big why, pick a point in their whole big story to begin to build and develop that brand from?
Yeah, it's hard. And it's hard for even strategists to create. And so one thing that I personally do with my clients is have them write it all down. And once they write it all down, we go in and we circle words that occur more than once. We circle the things and connect the dots from their story. And so once they get it all down, we can find a path. We can find something that connects it all. And that's what we're looking for, those connecting pieces. Because when it comes to writing a story, it's intimidating. And it's intimidating and you don't want to miss this part of your story or that part of your story. And so what we do is we create a journey by connecting those pieces, because we want to tell your whole story, but we want to tell it in digestible pieces that your clients can connect with. So if you come off and you just give it all at once, they're going to miss something. And so we tell it in those little groupings that they can connect with each way, and we lead them on the path that we want them to go to. And those snippets allow us to do that in an effective, consumable way that really and truly can make a difference. And that creates that loyalty.
Oh my goodness, that is so good. Because I remember in trying to develop my bio, it's like I'm 41 and I've lived a life. When I'm forced to now, in a certain limited number of words, describe who I believe I am and the value I would bring, it's hard. Right. But I remember what I was taught in the building of it. What I shared about my journey was always going to be connected to who I'm sharing it. Yes. So know how important is the foundation of your brand in terms of your audience? How important, or how are those two connected?
It's everything, right? Because we're not creating for ourselves, we're creating for other people. So understanding who your ideal client is as being a part of your pillars, that's something that you always check for, because that goes back to the mirror window question, right? Because you're showing on what it is that you want them to be able to understand. What point do you want them to get to? And so when we think about our ideal client, I think about it in groups. We have our absolute ideal client reader that is at the center of everything that we do. Then we have an audience around it. Now, these are people that are going to get some of it, but they might not connect with it in the same emotional way that our ideal reader is going to. And then we have the outlier group, and they're going to be able to create that community that the audience connects to. And then your ideal reader is the one at the center controlling them. So when we look at how we share our message, we look at it at the facet of very specifics that we use with our ideal client. We want to know what their age is, what their name may be, what they're doing in their industry, what's their income, do they have a family, what's important to them, what are they eating? Like, all of these little minute things shape a whole person. And once you become really clear on that, then you can understand what are the trigger words, what are the things that you can say, what are the emotions that you can create and connect with them that they're really going to utilize and connect with your brand and become loyal and really understand who you are in your writing. And that's going to keep them reading, because I'm an avid reader. And so I know, like, these are my authors and these are the ones that I go to. I know when their next book's coming out. I'm making a plan. So I'm going to finish this book right before their next one comes out because I don't want there to be any gaps in the reading.
Oh my goodness, that was so good. Now, guys, I'm just getting rocked. Oof. But let me try to make it to this next question. What are some key psychological factors that influence consumers' perceptions and preferences for certain authors or literary brands?
Okay, so there are quite a few key factors when it comes to the psychology that people utilize when they're connecting. It's attitudes, it's beliefs, it's perception, motivation, it's whether they are looking to learn, whether they're trying to reinforce something that they've already learned. And so it's really important in your branding that you decide on what key factors that you want to utilize to allow them to most easily connect with what you're creating or presenting to them, right? And so if you are saying, I want to do perception and motivation, learning, I want to use those key factors, right? You have to decide on what the problem is that you're solving for them, because it's always going to go back to the problem. Whether they're a stressed out entrepreneur and you want to connect with them to help them feel relieved, you're providing that solution. So establishing your problem and then using those key factors in order to give them a solution is going to be the most effective thing that you can do. And it's going to change, right? So like, as you follow along with these people on their journey and you understand that, okay, now I've provided learning. I've given them an education in something that I think is important and pertinent to their lives. Now I want to reinforce it. So I create a community around them and I invite them to that community and I have them so they feel empowered and they feel inspired with all of that. And then I go a step further and I introduce something else to them, some other content that they can do. And then they become advocates for your brand and they're sharing that, pulling more people into your community. So psychology is such a huge factor, especially now, because we want to feel like a part of community. We want to feel connected to something. And it's a blessing and a curse in the sense where we're virtual so that we can have that kind of space where we're connecting from people from everywhere, all walks of life, things that we didn't even think that we could do. But we have to be very careful. We have to be very intentional about the way that we create these communities. And we have to provide guidelines because people need that to feel that security when they're in a community. They want to feel free to express themselves and free to connect. And so we have to provide kind of a structured situation where they can feel all those things and you're still able to present and maintain your brand values.
Guys, I could sit up here and listen to her all day. Goodness gracious, such wisdom, such wisdom. You actually ended your response on a very pivotal point that leads to the next question that I have. What role does emotional branding play in establishing a deep connection with authors and their readers? And I want to make sure I preface the fact that a lot of our listeners are nonfiction content writers. So most of what they're writing on is based on true life experiences and situation.
It's so important, I believe, for when it comes to that emotional connection and when it comes to, especially with nonfiction writers, I think. And that's a challenge, right? Because you have to be very particular about the way that you choose your visuals that go around with your brand flow, right? And so it's tricky. I think it's probably the best way to say that because we look at certain colors when it comes to like color psychology, right? Blue means you have that trust, you have that security. And then blue in different color and different cultures means something else. So you like, okay, how can I pull this together? Or you have green, who represents, nature and kind of growth and stimulation and money. But that can also be seen negatively in other cultures where like money is connected to this. And so I think what it comes down to is really doing the research for your industry and seeing what's working for I don't like to call them competitors because we're all just doing it. But they are people that are working in the same market or might have the same ideal client as you. And so it's important for you to do a comparative analysis and see what the people in your industry, people that are related to your industry are doing and how effective they are in doing that. And then you can find the pit holes and see where you can fill in things that you can do differently to really give your brand that boost.
I could kind of sort of feel that some of our authors might have this follow-up question. Let's take a Michelle Obama as example. I feel like she does a fantastic job in branding, promoting, advertising, and really marketing her books. Excellent job. Her last book was The Light We Carry.
Right.
Let's roll with that one. I love the cover. I love the font. I love how it's all put together. She typically usually only does hardback. She has audio, all those different things we know to have, but she's Michelle Obama. So
Right.
how could we do a legitimate comparative analysis with someone whose name, independent of their book, is really the power behind their book?
You do it in tiers, and that's the thing. And so you start with the tier that people that are closer to you, and you have that. It's like when you're applying to college, right? You have your schools you know you can get into. You got schools that you can get into if you write the essay the right way. And then you got reach schools where you're like, I'm going to throw it and see if it lands. Let's do that. But for each of those tiers, there's something that you can learn. And so even when you look at the cover of Michelle Obama's book, The Light We Carry, you see the bright lightness that reflects on the shadow on her face on the cover. You see the light colors that she uses. You see the glow in it, and you can feel that because she's done a great job with the cover as making sure that it embodies even the title of it. And when you have that connection between the typography, the colors, the imagery, the shadows, and the entire visuals of it, people can automatically feel light. They can feel that when they look at the cover. And so you want to make sure that you're creating that connection to exactly what you're presenting versus following a trend. Like now you see all these bright colors that are dark, but also very vibrant but they're all looking the same. I was literally in Kramer's bookstore yesterday, and because I'm in DC right now, and literally all the covers that were stacked at the top looked exactly the same. And I just got lost in it because it's a trend to have these kind of like ardent hard covers where it's very direct lines and the typography is very block kind of thing. And it's handwritten, and I love handwritten, but they're all doing the same thing. And 2 years from now, it's going to be completely different because they're trying to follow the trend of what's really the majority of people. They're casting that wide net. But when you know your audience specifically, then you're able to really key in and connect with them directly, and they'll find your cover. They'll find that connection, and it gives them the feeling that they want to feel and the feeling that you're trying to communicate with them. And that's the effectiveness. That's the consistency.
Wow. When you were speaking, I felt like in my heart, I heard like my revelation was like, make sure you brand with purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
It sounds like you're describing the purpose and intentionality behind every element, every font, every color, every image. There is purpose with it. And purpose is so different than preference.
Yes.
Preference is about me. Purpose is for others. Girl, that just really wrecked me. How do you determine or discern if I'm branding with a preference versus a purpose?
That comes back to you checking yourself when you're going through the process. When you're asking that question, am I a mirror or am I a window? And then you're like, hey, is this about me or is it about them? Is it still reflecting what I want to share, or is it just something I'm creating for myself? Because when you are creating any piece of art, and that's what this is, it's like, am I creating this for my personal collection? If so, I can draw it up and put it on my wall and I'm done. But if I'm creating this for other people, are they connect? Are they getting my message? Is my message clear? How can I make it clear? How can I communicate this better? What can I do? Am I serving my purpose? Am I giving them what they need? And if so, how can I continue to support them with the things that I bring?
Wow. Now, as we try to put together all the great points and tidbits that you've given us so far and really land the plane on putting some of this into practice on social media or other online platforms, what are some things that you think an author that's starting out or wanting to really strengthen their connection, build that community online with readers, what would you suggest that they do to get started?
I would start with writing down your why, figuring out what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, and then create different levels of communication. If I just need to tell very quickly my messaging and why I'm doing it, this is my one-liner. This is the one thing that's going to completely or most effectively communicate what it is that I'm doing and why I'm doing, what my purpose is. And then you have your longer explanation. That's maybe like 3 or 4 sentences. And then you have your full-on story that you're able to share and keep that community. So when you're kind of putting that into social media, it's important that you've already created your entire brand package, because you want to make sure that you can stay consistent across those spaces, because once it goes on social media, it's there. It's not going nowhere. You can delete it. People can screenshot it. It is there. So make sure that you've already developed that foundational thing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because your brand is a living, breathing thing. And I think sometimes people forget that. It's going to change. It's going to alter. It's going to shift. It's human in that sense. And so making sure that you're representing those important non-moving brand pillars on your social media through quotes, through visuals, through questions, through connecting and engaging with your readers or your followers. That's going to be the most effective way to kind of push that onto social media and other platforms.
When you were re-referencing back to the brand pillars, I was thinking about how I had to get delivered, honestly, from a phase of posting what I felt. And I'm not saying that we don't have freedom to speak and to share, but I'm speaking of, if you're trying to build a brand that's attached to your name, there had to shift from just posting because I felt it. And I had to do that check-in. Like you said, Is this for me? Because maybe I should put this in my journal if it's for me. But if it's for the people that are on my platform, that I have their attention because they follow and they like me, I need to put it out there and make sure it has good purpose. Do you see that as a challenge for people when they're trying to envelop their brand? They get mixed up between, well, it's my social media, I can post what I want, versus staying focused and purpose-filled in their content that they're posting.
Absolutely. And I think oftentimes it's spectrum, and some people are on one end where they're just posting business stuff, and the other end, and they post whatever feels, whatever moves them in that moment kind of thing. But you have to find a way to get in the medium. So you want to be able to educate, to entertain, and you also want to be able to sell and to share kind of thing. But you don't want it to be so stiff that people can't connect with it. So you want to bring your personality into it, but you got to filter it. It can't be everything. So if that's something that's a challenge for you, it's important. Have more than one account, or have your Instagram for your business, have your Instagram for personal, have threads where people that want to connect with you on a different level that's not always connected to your business. There's threads now, which better Twitter. So you just put your stuff on there and connect it that way. And so I think it's important for people to create a plan on how they want to share before they just start sharing. Figure out what you want to do and what's most effective.
Wow, guys, we talked about delivering content, information, and resources on Brandology, unlocking the mind of consumers. And I don't know about you guys, but from the foundational brand pillars to understanding how to really get the most out of selecting the right visuals, typography, colors, imagery, I am just like, whoa, down to when she brought revelation on, are you a mirror or a window? I will probably be asking myself that often in hearing it. And then here last sharing that we got to be able to educate, entertain, and also leave room to sell and to share. You have really blessed me personally, and I'm certain that you have been an incredible blessing in the form of intellectual assets to our listeners. Jaylene, is there any last words, thoughts, resources, etc., that you'd like to share with our listeners?
It's all personal, so it's all depending on where you are in your journey, but feel free to reach out because I do offer free 15-minute consultation. So if you have a specific question, and that's something I always offer clients. So feel free to reach out and we can definitely set them up just if you need a little direction. I mean, Brim+Bold has always been built on helping people that want to make an impact. So if you're passionate about what you're doing, we'll definitely be there to help you and to guide you and support you in any way that we can.
Amen and amen. Okay, guys, now it's time to implement. It's time to execute, and it's time to prosper. Until next time.